What's up everybody, I'm Nick, and this is The Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. If you're watching this on Saturday, then we're only one day away from the big game, and I hope your team wins. But if you're watching this after Sunday, then wow, what a great game. This week we're looking into why Xbox is reportedly considering putting one of their bigger games on other platforms. That's a sentence. Another record broken by the Nintendo Switch, the latest casting for Sonic 3, and a whole lot more. Look at that, it's news in time. Let's hit that transition and get to the first story.
Following Xbox's acquisition of ZeniMax Media, it seemed safe to assume that all Bethesda-published games moving forward would be exclusive to Xbox and PC, but that may not be the case. Allegedly, PS5 versions of Starfield and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle are under consideration. Reported by The Verge, an anonymous source with knowledge of Microsoft's inner workings claims the company is, quote, weighing up which titles will remain exclusive and others that will appear on Switch or PS5 in the future. Assuming this information is accurate and plans don't change sometime between now and then, one of the first big titles to get this treatment would be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Machine Games' upcoming first-person adventure about the iconic college professor in a fedora who punches Nazis in the face. The source claims this is slated to hit Xbox and PC in December 2024 and would arrive on PS5 after a, quote, rather short period of time later, which could be as little as a few months. Meanwhile, another outlet reported something similar. According to Xbox Era, Bethesda's open-world Starpg and Potato Physics Simulator may get the same treatment, with a PS5 version arriving after the upcoming Shattered Space expansion drops sometime later this year. Ironically, this sounds a little bit like how Bethesda's last few games prior to the Xbox buyout were handled. Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo both launched on PS5 as timed console exclusives before coming to Xbox after a little while. This isn't the first we've heard of first-party Xbox games coming to other platforms either. There have been some rumblings about Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves coming to competing consoles. We'll keep you posted on the story as it develops.
Disney has purchased a $1.5 billion stake in Epic Games and teamed up with the company to develop a new, are you ready? Here we go. A new, expansive, open, persistent, and social universe that will interoperate with Fortnite and let fans play, watch, shop, and engage with their favorite characters and stories from Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Avatar, and more. The news was revealed during Disney's Q1 fiscal year 24 earnings call, and it was announced that this new experience, built in Unreal Engine, will let players, quote, create their own stories and experiences, express their fandom in a distinctly Disney way, and share content with each other in ways that they love. Bobby Iger himself said, this marks Disney's biggest entry ever into the world of games and offers significant opportunities for growth and expansion. We can't wait for fans to experience the Disney stories and worlds they love in groundbreaking new ways. No further details were given about the project or when fans can expect it to arrive, but it is said to be a multi-year project and looks to expand on many of the times Disney and Epic have worked together in Fortnite. In addition to there being Marvel and Star Wars skins in the game, there have also been such live events as the Marvel Nexus War with Galactus that brought in 15.3 million concurrent players. An Elden Ring mobile game is in development, but don't hold your breath. Sounds like it's a ways away and also probably dumb. Reuters reports that Tencent is working to adapt From Software's mega hit into a mobile game, but progress is described as slow. Apparently, Tencent wants the Elden Ring mobile game to work similarly to gacha game Genshin Impact, with a free-to-play business model supported by in-app purchases. But the design of Elden Ring, which is a single-player premium action role-playing game, is, quote, at odds with Tencent's vision. Yeah, no shit. News of an Elden Ring mobile game comes amid what fans hope is the imminent release of the hotly anticipated Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. Various changes to the back end of Elden Ring's entry in Steam suggest something is afoot. So far, however, both developer From Software and publisher Bandai Namco have remained quiet. As for Tencent, it appears to be struggling to create mobile game hits based on established PC and console games. Last week, we learned it had canceled an unannounced Nier mobile game. I guess that's what you call a near miss. In its latest financial report, publisher Krafton seemingly revealed that Subnautica 2 is a multiplayer-focused live service game, causing quite a stir among fans of the series. Developer Unknown Worlds, however, quickly clarified things in a blog post, insisting that it is in fact not multiplayer-focused and explained the games-as-a-service aspect. In the financial report, Krafton described Subnautica 2 as a multiplayer sequel to the original IP pursuing fandom snowballing, which doesn't make any sense. It went on to say Subnautica 2 lets players explore an oceanic world in stunning stylized graphics powered by Unreal Engine 5 with single or 1 to 4 player co-op to uncover the mysteries on an entirely new alien planet alongside a game-as-a-service model with enhanced replayability. In the blog post today, though, Unknown Worlds specifically addressed some of those descriptions with a few clarifications. It wrote, "In reference to games as a service, we simply plan to continually update the game for many years to come, just like the previous 2 Subnautica games. Think our early access update model expanded. No season passes, no battle passes, no subscription." The developer added that it is not multiplayer focused. Co-op will be an entirely optional way to play the game. You'll be able to enjoy the game as a single player. It also said that early access is not intended for release in 2024, but it plans to share a lot more information later this year. I would guess that publishers like Krafton like to throw the term game as a service into their financial reports because investors really like the sound of that. Subnautica is a hugely successful indie game that first emerged in 2018, then saw a follow-up, Below Zero, in 2021. IGN's Subnautica review returned a 9 out of 10. We found it had an excellent sci-fi story, but its greatest achievement is its underwater horror. Moving on, a group of JRPG veterans have announced Lost Hellden, a new JRPG for PC and consoles that's due out in 2025. Art will be created by Takeshi Oga, known for Gravity Rush and Final Fantasy XIV, and Hitoshi Sakamoto from Valkyria Chronicles and Tactics Ogre will manage music and audio direction. The developers describe the world of Lost Hellden as such. "Welcome to Era, where every life comes with a price. Every Aaron is bound to one of the 7 sins before their first birthday. All their lives, people fight against their urges. A place in the sacred land of Hellden is promised to their immortal souls if they succeed, but if they fail and succumb to their sin, a fate worse than death awaits them." Lost Hellden's unique painted art style is described as Deep 2D. The devs promise a strategic action battle system, along with a rich story, deep characters, and plenty of character customization. So that's another game to add to the 2025 watch list, along with Grand Theft Auto 6 and Death Stranding 2 on the beach. While the world waits to find out what the future holds for Xbox next week, Microsoft has announced the Game Pass lineup for February. Available today, February 6th, is Anuchard. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Here's the official blurb. The kingdom of Anuchard has fallen. Generations after the collapse, its surviving descendants have chosen you to become the bell wielder of the magical Audros Bell. Go forth, battle monsters, solve puzzles, and restore Anuchard to its former skyward glory. Okay. Tomorrow, February 7th, sees the addition of Dovetail Games' Train Sim World 4. This is one for the train enthusiasts out there, which are apparently called rail buffs or train spotters. Then, on February 8th, courtesy of EA Play, comes Madden NFL 24, for console and PC, just in time for the Super Bowl. IGN's review returned a 6 out of 10. We said, "New animations and improved AI make Madden NFL 24's on-field action the best it's ever been, but everything that happens off the field is a slog of dated modes and laggy menus that brings everything around it down." Moving on, February 13th sees the addition of the Resident Evil 3 remake. This is a great survival horror game that doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessor, the Resident Evil 2 remake. 2 games on February 14th, puzzle game A Little to the Left, and the awesome Metroidvania Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which returns to Game Pass. I reviewed this one for IGN and I loved it. Now where is that sequel? February 14th sees Plate Up enter Game Pass. It's a cooking action game with permanent roguelite progression. And finally, Return to Grace hits Game Pass on February 20th. It's a first-person narrative adventure with positive reviews on Steam. And just a reminder that MLB The Show 24th, due out March 19th, is coming to Game Pass on day 1. Leaving Game Pass on February 15th are Galactic Civilizations 3 from PC and Opus Echo of Starsong.
Shifting gears from a JRPG we're getting very soon to one we probably won't be, Persona 3 Reload is out today, but if you prefer an expanded special edition like Persona 4's Golden or Persona 5's Royal, don't hold your breath. In an interview with Gamer WK translated by Persona Central, Persona team production manager Katsuhito Wada explained, quote, "Currently we are not considering a revision, like with Persona 5 to Persona 5 Royal, which involves significant changes and additions to the original title. Fans can rest assured knowing that Persona 3 Reload offers a complete experience," end quote. I would take this with a grain of salt, since Atlus has a history of getting fans to double dip on Persona games. Persona 3 Reload is obviously a big, huge, full-on rebuild of the game, but depending on how you're counting, it's also the 4th or 5th time they've released a game called Persona 3. There was the original PS2 version, there was the enhanced Persona 3 FES expansion, there was Persona 3 Portable, and then there were the remastered ports of Persona 3 Portable, which had subtle improvements over the original. But hey, maybe Reload is finally the definitive version. But then again, if you're holding out to play it on Switch, that's also not out of the question. Last month, the developers said they decided early on there would not be a Switch version of Reload, but they did acknowledge, quote, "Of course the idea is there, but it's a matter of discussing it with the team and seeing what they think about it, and we'll see what happens." So never say never. My takeaway here is that buying Persona 3 is kind of like buying a new car or phone or TV, and that no matter when you buy Persona 3, there's always going to be that sense of buyer's remorse when they announce a newer version. But hey, people love Persona 3, Reloaded or otherwise. IGN's reviewer gave the 2024 model a 9 out of 10, so go check that out if you're on the fence. And finally, shifting gears to something that is probably definitely never coming to Xbox, Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann hinted at what could be in store for The Last of Us Part 3 if such a thing happens. Bear in mind, a third game in the beloved series hasn't been officially announced, though there have been some rumblings about it, which isn't that surprising considering how popular the first two entries are. At the tail end of the recently released documentary Grounded 2, Making The Last of Us Part 2, Druckmann pontificated on the overarching narrative of the series so far. He said, quote, "The first game had such a clean concept of like the unconditional love a parent feels for their child. The second one, once we landed on this idea of the pursuit of justice at any cost, justice for the ones you love, we felt like there's a clean concept here and there's a through line from the first game about love. If we never get to do it again, this is a fine ending point. Last bite of the apple, the story's done." Druckmann went on to explain that earlier reports that the studio had outlined a third game were inaccurate and that some ideas had been kicked around, but they'd been backburnered to focus on other priorities. However, the kernel of an idea was a story centered around Joel's brother Tommy following the events of the second game. Druckmann elaborates, quote, "I don't have a story, but I do have that concept that to me is as exciting as one, as exciting as two, is its own thing, and yet has this through line for all three, so it does feel like there's probably one more chapter to the story." Obviously, if The Last of Us Part 3 gets officially formally announced anytime soon, we will totally let you know, but in the meantime, my guess is that Druckmann is probably pretty focused on the second season of the HBO series, which starts shooting next week. If you want an in-depth look back and a look ahead at how these games get made, go check out Grounded 2 on Naughty Dog's official YouTube channel. Meanwhile, Sega's other big JRPG series, Like a Dragon, formerly the beat-em-up series known as Yakuza, just dropped its newest installment, Infinite Wealth, and it is living up to its namesake by becoming the fastest-selling entry in the series to date. In the week since its release, more than 1 million players have snagged a copy of the game, and to celebrate that milestone, Sega and RGG Studios announced they're giving everybody free t-shirts. And by everybody, I mean Ichiban and Kiryu and the rest of the party in-game. The celebratory t-shirt set will be released as DLC at a later date, and we'll find out when that later date is on the official social media channels. We'll keep you posted on that. Hopefully the team has some fun with this, since a t-shirt kind of pales in comparison to some of the crazy outfits you can wear in that game, like scuba suits and dominatrix outfits and grass skirts, things like that. It's a very, very silly game, but it's also a very good game. Infinite Wealth scored a 9 out of 10 in IGN's review as well. Different reviewers, but still, JRPG fans are eating pretty good right now. I'm about 40 hours into Infinite Wealth, and it's easily a top 3 Yakuza game for me, and it's too soon to say, but it might be my favorite yet.
Moving on, Nintendo is still squeezing sales out of the 7-year-old Switch, shifting almost 14 million units in the first 9 months of its financial year. That was actually a 7.8% decline in the same period a year earlier, but Nintendo has revised its sales forecast for the current financial year upwards, predicting Switch sales of 15.5 million, up from the 15 million previously predicted. Reporting its financials for the 3 months ending December 31st, Nintendo said Switch exclusive Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the first side-scrolling Super Mario Bros. In almost 11 years, saw a solid start with sales of nearly 12 million. Sales continue to grow for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is now up to an impressive 20 million units sold, but some ways off from Breath of the Wild's 31.6 million. Pikmin 4, fantastic game, is now at 3.3 million units sold, and Super Mario RPG, which came out in November, already reached 3.1 million. The unstoppable Mario Kart 8 Deluxe shifted another 6.8 million units. The kart racer is now up to an eye-watering 60.6 million sold, comfortably the best-selling Switch game and the best-selling kart racer of all time. As for the Switch itself, Nintendo said sales of the console continue to be steady in its 7th year. The Switch is now up to nearly 140 million units sold. It lags behind only the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2 in the best-selling consoles of all time list. Incredibly, the Switch is now only about 14 million units away from the PS2. Nintendo said, for hardware, by continuing to convey the appeal of Nintendo Switch, we try not only to put one system in every home, but several in every home, or even one for every person. Looking ahead, Nintendo will release Mario vs. Donkey Kong this month and Princess Peach Showtime in March. And of course, there's also that elusive Switch 2, which is reportedly due out later this year. Everyone's calling for it to be backwards compatible, and with 140 million Switches already out there, I can't imagine it won't be.
Another record broken by the Switch. At 140 million sold, it currently sits at the 3rd best-selling console of all time, only to be beat by the DS and the PS2. Which is kind of unfair when you consider that at launch, the PS2 was an affordable DVD player, that's why I had one, and there were like 1 billion DS revisions and special editions. I had like 10. Regardless, that's still a pretty huge milestone when the Wii U only sold around 14 million units. Speaking of PlayStation, if you haven't played my personal favorite game of all time, then you should check out this IGN playlist that features the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII. You're in for a good and then very sad time. Alright, we're about to take a quick break, but don't worry because when we come back, we're checking out the latest on Sonic 3, Henry Cavill's thoughts on Warhammer, and so much more. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're about to examine why Winnie the Pooh looks so strange in Blood and Honey 2, James Cameron's thoughts on Avatar 6 and 7, your grandkids are gonna love that when that releases, and a ton more.
We got the exclusive Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 trailer, and with a larger budget comes better production value. Now in this sequel, we can expect to see the return of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, joined by their bestest of friends, Tigger and Owl. Now both Pooh and Piglet are sporting new looks, completely different from their appearances in the previous film. Now not only will they look different, but so will Christopher Robin, as actor Scott Chambers is taking on the role of the former kid with an active imagination. Now aside from Blood and Honey 2, you may have seen Scott Chambers appear in the 2017 film Blood Money, which is highly unlikely, and not to be confused with the other 2017 film Blood Money starring John Cusack. Now, honestly, it's kind of confusing how there could be two different movies with the very same name that come out the very same year. I don't know who's in charge of naming movies, but I don't know, maybe they need to pick up a thesaurus. Anyway, as for what's going on in the upcoming horror sequel, the official synopsis reads,
Not wanting to live in the shadows any longer, the group decides to take the fight to the town of Ashdown, home of Christopher Robin, leaving a bloody trail of death and mayhem in their wake. Winnie and his savage friends will show everyone that they are deadlier, stronger, and smarter than anyone could ever imagine, and get their revenge on Christopher Robin once and for all.
Bet you weren't expecting that, huh? Coming from this mouth. Yeah. Anyways, goosebumps. Now also in this film, it appears as though Winnie the Pooh will actually talk.
They won't sound like this though, no.
But he won't sound like that at all, for obvious reasons. They don't want to get sued by Disney. Come on now. Now, these characters all look vastly different from their animated counterparts, as you can clearly see, though that didn't stop a Florida school teacher from mistakenly showing the first Blood and Honey movie to a bunch of fourth graders last October. So I don't know, maybe this warrants a side-by-side comparison. And here's the movie poster we got exclusively from the production team, featuring the cast, and for illustration purposes, we got the Disney images next to each on screen. As you can see, the nightmare-fueled versions all seem to have a lot of clothing on them that you wouldn't expect. Like, I mean, look at Tigger. Tigger, for some reason, is wearing a shirt he likely got from Demo Baza. Piglet looks like he raided Leatherface's closet. Owl looks like if the Wishmaster and the Jeepers Creepers monster had a baby in Jim Henson's Labyrinth movie, and Winnie the Pooh just looks like a melting Wilford Brimley. That's for those OGs out there who know who he is. You may or may not. Yeah. Anyways, Jagged Edge Productions is teaming up with Fathom Events to host the theatrical release of the movie later this year, likely in October. But as more news breaks, we'll be sure to let you know. Now, how do you think they'll reimagine Kanga and Roo if they do a third movie? And what will they do with the heffalumps and
Razors? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't bother.
We've got some casting news for the third installment of the Sonic movie. Now, despite previously stating he was retiring from acting after Sonic 2, Jim Carrey is apparently returning for Sonic 3 as Robotnik. And while the second movie finally gave us Dr. Robotnik's iconic mustache, we haven't yet gotten that rotund shape he's most known for. But speaking with Jim Carrey on the direction of his character, he had this to say to us.
Well, I love the design of the original character, so, we wanted him to evolve. I wanted the round suit and everything, but, perhaps down the road, I wanted to shave that hair off, get that mustache going. I justified it as, he shaved the hair off because that's the hair of a loser. That's the hair that lost to Sonic the first time. That's gotta go. That energy has to be cleansed. The mustache is, like the cartoon, I think it's just an extension of his ego. It was really fun. It became like a seesaw. I wanted it even bigger. I wanted seats on both sides and the other characters to go back and forth on it.
Well, glad to see he'll be returning to the franchise. Now, as for those new to the series, we have Christian Ritter, James Woke, Sofia Perez, Cristo Fernandez, and Jorma Tacone will be in Sonic 3. But no word on who they'll be playing. Now, out of those mentioned, Kristen Ritter is probably the most familiar, as she starred in Netflix's Jessica Jones series as the titular character. Now, with the appearance of Shadow the Hedgehog set for Sonic 3, the movie is set to move into Sonic Adventure territory. Now, with this, lots of rumors have been swirling around the internet that Rouge the Bat or Maria from Sonic Adventure 2 might also make an appearance. Still no word on who will be voicing Sonic's artificially assembled antagonist, and with a release date of December 20th, Sonic will be dashing onto our screens by the end of the year. But that's not all 2024 has up its sleeves. And we'll also be receiving the tie-in spin-off of Knuckles, that particular series, sometime this year. Now the series will stream on Paramount Plus. Now, no release date just yet on that, but as it'll tie into the third Sonic movie, odds are it'll be out later on this year. Now, casting includes returning Sonic the Hedgehog 2's Idris Elba as the titular Echidna and Adam Pally, who you might remember was the bumbling Green Hills police officer Wade Whipple. Now, Tika Sumpter will also reprise her role from the movies, guest starring in a few episodes. Now, Back to the Future's Christopher Lloyd was recently added to the cast in an undisclosed role as well. But there are leaks online that he might be playing a character known as Great Scott.
Great Scott!
I'm joking, of course. That's what he said in Back to the Future. It's a joke. Great Scott! Y'all know the joke. Anyways, the official logline suggests it'll take place after the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as a lead up to Sonic 3. And it also details that Knuckles agrees to train Officer Wade in the ancient ways of the Echidna, taking him under his wing as his protege. Now, how he plans to teach a bumbling cop how to be an Echidna warrior is beyond me, but with the comedic delivery both characters had in Sonic 2, this sounds like this series will lean more on the comedy side of things than high-stakes action. Now, jumping back to Sonic 3, the movie, we also got this really cool teaser. And in the promo, they managed to sneak in a reworked version of Live and Learn from Sonic Adventure 2. Now, you might remember that tune from the final battle of the game. Now, tell us what you think of the casting, rumored Sonic characters, appearances, and everything else in the comments down below.
Something Henry Cavill was much happier to discuss on the same Happy, Sad, Confused podcast was the upcoming Warhammer adaptation that's currently in development with Amazon. Cavill is currently attached to star in and executive produce a live-action adaptation of Games Workshop's tabletop universe, and he sounds very excited, saying, quote, "It is the greatest privilege in my professional career to have this opportunity." Now, considering Cavill has already played Superman, Sherlock Holmes, Geralt of Rivia, and will soon be starring in The Highlander, that's high praise. "This is the stuff I've been dealing with since I was a kid," he explained, continuing, "This is the stuff I spend my free time daydreaming about as an adult as well, and I get to bring it to life. There is no greater reason that I joined the industry than doing something like this." It's still very early in development, so much so that it's unclear if it'll take the form of a movie or series, but we will keep you posted when we hear more. Here's hoping there aren't any sex scenes, partially for Cavill's sake, but also, based on the reaction to the live-action Halo series, fans seem to prefer Space Marines keep their heavily armored pants on.
And finally, an exclusive report from Screen Rant is giving Avatar fans something to look forward to. While attending the Saturn Awards, the media outlet asked director James Cameron about the upcoming sequel, Avatar 3, and the future of the franchise. Now, he told them, quote, "It's pretty much in the can. We're shooting pickups on 3, which is just filling in the last 2 or 3%, and we've also got live action pickups in June. That's another couple percent. We've got about a quarter of movie 4 in the can. We're post on 3 and now doing the VFX, which is an enormous job. I'll need every second between now and then to get it done." Meanwhile, Cameron also spoke to People magazine and gave updates on what comes next after that, saying, quote, "We're fully written through movie 5 and I've got ideas for 6 and 7, although I'll probably be handing the baton on at that point." Avatar 3 is expected to release December 19th, 2025, with the 4th and 5th films slated for December 21st, 2029 and December 19th, 2031, respectively. Now, he's got plenty of lead time for 6 and 7 if people aren't, at that point sick of the franchise or he's sick of making them. In the meantime, we'll keep you posted when we hear more about Avatar 3.
And finally today, even the most diehard MCU fans will admit Marvel's Eternals left a lot to be desired, and if you were disappointed after watching it, imagine how it felt to be in it. Kumail Nanjiani recently opened up about how the film's negative backlash hit him so hard he started counseling to rethink how he's approaching his acting career. On the Inside of You podcast, the actor explained, "I realized that the way I was evaluating what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do was all completely messed up. I was looking at it like, okay, if I do this, this movie's going to come out in theaters, it's going to be a big hit, and I'll get more. Prior to release, Eternals looked promising. It had a star-studded cast, an Oscar-winning director, and up until then, the MCU had been pretty consistent in terms of quality, and early screenings were received well. Kumail apparently had fun making the film, but when the reviews came in, he was completely caught off guard. He continued, "I realized that too much of how I'm evaluating what I want to do is based on the result or what other people think of it. That's when I was like, this is unfair to me, it's unfair to my wife Emily, I can't approach my work this way anymore, some shit's gotta change." So very intentionally, I did start counseling. Kumail Nanjiani's next big movie is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Hopefully that makes better use of his talents and gets a better reception. I guess we'll find out next month.
I'm Nick, and that was your Weekly Fix. We'll be back next week with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news. But until then, make sure to tune into IGN's FanFest beginning February 19th for exclusive interviews, trailers, gameplay, and more from the biggest names in games and entertainment. From Dune Part 2 to Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender to anime such as Solo Leveling to game exclusives from WWE 2K24 and Street Fighter 6 and more. Whew, it is a packed show. We'll also be streaming live on all of IGN's platforms from the main event on February 23rd and 24th, with even more reveals and surprises from fan favorite shows, movies, comics, and games. It's all there. And that about wraps it up for this week. Until next time, go be great and take care.